Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It gives me great pleasure to invite Lloyd Mear to It's Rainmaking Time to discuss the science of frequency and the work that he's doing balancing the body using specific frequencies. He states that there's approximately 1.2 million frequencies in the human body, that the work that he's doing after spending many years researching the evolution of metals, of the human body and the energy and electrical system, is that he is balancing the body with frequencies. He's also heavily involved in the science of water, in nano water, which he's also going to talk to us about, since water is so important for keeping us well and alive and feeling full of energy. He states also that the human body is very much like a radio, where you turn the body to certain frequencies just like you do a radio. And depending upon what those frequencies are is what you hear and what communicates through the body. Let's bring on Lloyd Mear to talk about it. Welcome to It's Rainmaking Time, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Kim. And thank you, everybody out there that will take a minute to perhaps tune in to the message. And it's basically a non-scientific approach to a very perhaps scientific reality, but it's basically done by my contact with a higher source, and I've just learned how to reach out and receive that information. And I'm very much humbled by the ability. It is not an ego trip by any stretch of imagination, but it basically is one that I perhaps have been able to perfect, and perhaps we are all able to reach out to that information source if one can only define the route to get there, and I've been fortunate enough to perhaps find my way. Anyway, talking about, as Kim did, and my experience in energy, it goes back a few years now, and primarily I was doing a development on why gold nuggets develop in stream beds. And there is never, and very seldom ever, a mother lode source where the gold comes from. More often than not, there isn't any explanation at all why it appears where it does. And in many cases, you're able to return the following year and really mine a creek bed again from the same material that you mined the year previous and get more gold. So the reality is that it's all energy that is basically in contact with the water as the water flows down its water course, picking up energies along the way, and these are very precise isotopes of very specific mineral sources, all come together, and at some given point, that last missing piece is brought into the flowing pitcher, and within a matter of seconds, a particle of gold will develop out of that combined energy that is at that point. A particle of gold is micron in size, and it basically is now too heavy to suspend itself in water, and it will basically drop out of the suspension of water and onto the bottom of the river bed or creek bed. At that time, it basically has a valence of 3, and these little particles have a desire to really meet up with other particles, and they come together, and nuggets grow particle upon particle upon particle.
Lloyd, is the way that you're describing the evolution of how gold comes to be, is this a known concept?
It's taught in universities, some universities now, that gold nuggets grow. But no, the knowledge of the energetic makeup of them is not known. And the reality that is happening is not known. It just really forms a great big question as to how it happens, but it does happen. And they're basically recognizing the fact now that it is a reality, that it happens, but they don't know the energy makeup of it all. And it's really a matter of understanding the specific isotope of a specific metal. In the case of gold, you have to have aluminum isotope 28. Well, that has to be one of the pieces. You have to have iron isotope 57. You have to have silica isotope 10. I mean, I've argued with a science professor out of New York that there is such a thing as silica isotope 10. So the knowledge, and he argues that there isn't, and I argue that there is. And but the point being is that people don't really, and And society do not really understand how many isotopes there are in each mineral category. There's about 20 to 22 isotopes. And for figure of speech, for our purpose, call an isotope a family member, because it's far more involved than that. But they are basically all part of the family. In iron, there are 22 of them. And your car is made out of isotope 54 and 56. Iron 57 is the correct iron for the human body, for animals, for trees, for plants, for vegetables, for everything. It will be iron 57. And that is, but iron 57 is not a metal. It's only an energetic form of iron. And so that is really what the body uses to build with. And so it's a matter of understanding these specific isotopes. And so very often in our mineral supplements, that we basically find that the supplement is given it to us in a metal form, not the energetic isotope that it should be, but it's in another isotope of iron or calcium or whatever, and it's in the incorrect isotope. In the case of calcium, more often than not, the calcium isotope is 50 or 51 that we're fed in a supplemental form, and in any calcium that's added to our food, you will find is going to be 50 or 51. But the correct isotope for the human body is isotope 46.
How do we know that?
That is the problem. You don't know it.
Let's talk about how you know it.
I'm able to dowse it out. But on the other hand, how you can get some clue is when you go into a store and you're going to buy calcium supplement, you take the container and you hold it up to your chest underneath your chin, high on your chest. And you put your left hand to hold it there, and you put your right hand on top of your left hand. And you do what is called a tip test. And you stand erect, and you may even want to close your eyes, but that's not necessary. But you put your feet about a foot apart, so you're standing erect, and your body will tip you forward if it's good for you. If it isn't good for you, it'll tip you backwards. And you will find that, and you can also do it with salt. There is so much salt on the market that is not good for you. And the fact is it comes from a sea salt or Himalayan salt. You do a tip test on it and it'll tip you backwards. This salt is not good for you. And so there's starting to be a realization out there that salt is not necessarily good for you, although we need a certain amount of salt, but you really have to have the right kind of salt, and it's got to be in the energetic state. And it's not easy to find. It really is not easy.
It's certainly better than a lot of the salt that comes from the general markets, isn't it?
Well, I'm not able to measure, perhaps, and I've never attempted to measure what is not as bad as other. So there's a very good possibility that some of it may be less damaging and some of it could be more so. And that may well be the case in calcium 50 may not be as damaging as, say, calcium 51. But I've not done a comparison on the negative side as to what is less bad than the other. But in the case of calcium, if in fact it is derived from a food source, then you're pretty safe because a plant will not pick up the wrong source of calcium, the wrong source of iron, the wrong source of any mineral. It will not pick it up. It can't pick it up because in reality when you think what happens is that water flows down through the earth. And if it happens to be the energetic isotope, that energy is readily transferred into water because it's only energy. And it basically picks up the energy, basically ends up in the water goes into the root system of the plant, and the plant basically consumes, or basically holds, really, doesn't consume it, but it holds the mineral. And that's why herbs and plants, particularly herbs, they're basically a concentrator of a mineral. And so when you take the herb, you're getting a concentrated form of the mineral, which once came down through the soil as water, picked up energy in the form of the mineral, went into the plant, and the plant concentrates it and builds as this program goes on and on and on. And so when you start to analyze it, it makes total sense that this is not a physical happening at all, and the mineral that's in the plant in reality is not a physical reality, it's an energetic reality.